My name is Lois Passi, and I'll be speaking today about charity as transcendence. I would like to begin by thanking both the Social Concerns Committee and the Worship Committee for agreeing to dedicate one service per quarter to the theme addressed by the charity of the quarter. The charity for this quarter is Ronald McDonald House in Danville, and I will certainly discuss what that can mean for us. However, since this is our first service tied to the charity of the quarter, I would like to discuss the more basic issue of tying our charitable acts with our worship. What does one have to do with the other? Why are we tying social concerns and worship together? I begin my answer by defining the two key words in the title of this sermon, charity and transcendence. In Webster's dictionary, there are several definitions for charity, most having to do with giving money, helping others, or institutions that do these things. But the first definition is benevolent goodwill or love of humanity. Now, honestly, I prefer love of all beings. So we'll say benevolent goodwill or love of all beings. This is a definition of heart, not one that speaks to money or things. I think Mother Teresa recognized this essential aspect of charity when she said, "It's not how much we give, but how much love we put into giving." Many of us are familiar with 1 Corinthians 13, even if we don't read the Bible a lot. 1 Corinthians 13 is all about charity, which in this case is a synonym for love. In the third verse, it says, "If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing." So we are introduced to the notion that just giving money or time is not charity. Giving out of guilt, giving because the next person is watching you, or giving so that you can later ask someone else to give to you. These are like throwing a well-cooked meal on the table and stomping away. The lack of love takes away the nourishment and the pleasure. Then there is the other word, transcendence. When something is transcendent, it is exceeding usual limits, extending or lying beyond the limits of ordinary experience. This is where it gets really interesting. How can charity help us to get beyond the limits of our ordinary experience? Charity often involves the alleviation of pain. For that charity to be meaningful, for it to be given with love, as Mother Teresa suggests, we must be able to confront that pain head on. And for us to be able to confront someone else's pain, we must be able to confront our own pain. What makes us small is how much of ourselves we disown because of fear. We are like a house that should be fully lit, warm, and inviting. Instead, many of the rooms are dark and dank. We are too fearful to explore those parts of ourselves. And what we can't confront in ourselves, we can't confront in others. For example, for many people, it is very unpleasant to walk through a nursing home. We may see people yelling out incoherently, drooling all over themselves, or speaking in ways that make no sense. We see them in wheelchairs, frail, perhaps staring vacantly into space. And deep down, we are confronted with our own terror, because we know that one day we could be in a wheelchair in exactly the same condition. So we want to get out of there as fast as we can, into the sunshine. Maybe we shut out our experience by getting something to eat or rushing on to something else. But what if we could stay with our terror? What if that incoherent, drooling person could actually help us to face our own eventual demise? If we could open our heart just a little more, look into that vacant face, we might light up one of the rooms in our own internal home. We could spend less energy trying to shut out the fear of old age and death, reinvesting that energy in living. Could we go beyond looking into the vacant face and even find love for that person? That is an example of a transcendent experience, what it means to go beyond the experience of our ordinary, fear-driven lives. And if we're not yet ready to look into the eyes or to feel love, that's okay. Perhaps we're just ready to see our own fear, and that is a step forward. Maybe seeing ourselves as a home, our work being to light up all of the rooms, the fireplaces, and the kitchen ovens, is why I have always had a place in my heart for Ronald McDonald House. People walk in there in tremendous pain. Their lives are torn apart by illness, maybe by the threat of death. There is total upheaval. They may be miles away from their own homes. Even something as simple as a meal becomes difficult and pales in the face of mortal terror. Yet Ronald McDonald House receives people in all of their terror, feeds them, gives them a comfortable bed, and a porch to sit in and feel the sunshine. Maybe the meal they eat will be one that we made for them. And maybe we can become like Ronald McDonald House and receive people in all of their terror, giving them a place in our hearts to feel the sunshine. Now, if we're very honest, you might say, Lois, that's really nice. I like it, and I'd really like to participate. But what's in it for me? I'm busy. I have my kids' soccer games. I have to mow my lawn, and I'd feel a whole lot better if I could get that out of the way. Or perhaps it's rainy, windy, and cold, and darn it, it's Saturday, the one day in the week when you can sleep in. I know I should go, you think. But deep down inside, I don't see what I'll get out of it, and I can very easily see what I'll get out of sleeping in or getting my work out of the way. So I'll go next time. My first response is to say, for heaven's sake, don't volunteer because you ought to. And don't feel guilty if you sleep in. If you want to feel guilty, go to another church. There are plenty of churches for that. We're not good at guilt. If you're going to sleep in, enjoy it. My second response is to encourage you to examine whether or not you are passing up an appointment with someone or some group that may help you. Let me explain with an anecdote. About 30 years ago, I lived in New Jersey, a short distance from the train station, so I could easily take the train to New York City, which I often did. One Sunday, while I was on a subway, a young woman walked through the side door, stopped a few feet from me, and began a speech. Street news, get your street news. She went on to explain that Street News was a newspaper produced by the homeless who were trying to help themselves. I felt drawn to this young woman and had the impulse to invite her to lunch. But everything I learned in kindergarten stopped me. Don't talk to strangers. So I fought the urge the whole time she was there, which may have been about 2 minutes. After she left, I felt a profound sense of grief, as if I'd missed something. So I did something I didn't usually do. I said to God, if you really want me to take her to lunch, let me see her again, and this time I'll ask. Then I figured that I'd see someone's back in the distance and wonder if it was her. Instead, hours later, when I was taking the subway back to Penn Station, as soon as I stepped in and the doors closed, not 3 seconds later, she stepped in, standing exactly where she had stood earlier, making the same speech. It was really, back in those days was when you had videos, VHS videos. It was really as if someone had hit a rewind button and then hit play again. It was that exact. I decided that was a pretty clear message and invited her to lunch, and she accepted. We ate at a restaurant across from Penn Station. I remember she wrapped up much of her food, explaining that her stomach shrank because she didn't usually eat that much, so she would eat some more later. She told me how she became homeless. I told her about someone I thought might be able to help her if she wanted to try. She was running from the law over unpaid traffic tickets. And then we parted. For years I thought of her off and on. I wondered why we had this encounter. But when I thought of her, I always thought about what I was supposed to do for her. Did she try to contact the person I mentioned? Did something else occur in our encounter that would lead her to end her homeless situation? But as the years went on, I began to think about the encounter differently. I thought of why I needed her. Why was she sent to help me? I have no control over what she does with her life, but I can learn whatever I am willing to learn from the encounter. That is entirely under my control. Certainly, she taught me to trust my instincts. She showed me a little of what it is like to be homeless and hungry as well. I had never before thought about the fact that someone's stomach would shrink and they would only be able to consume a small amount of food at one time. Rumi, the ancient Islamic mystic, once said, "Where there is ruin, there is hope for a treasure." It is easy to assume that there is ruin in a homeless, hungry person who is running from the law. But is there ruin in me? Is there hope for a treasure in me? What if she is the angel who was sent to heal me? What if we were made for each other in that moment? That is charity as the door to transcendence. So, if you're thinking about coming to Ronald McDonald House or anywhere else because you ought to, cut yourself a break. You won't be able to put love into your giving. But if you want to meet those who you were sent to help, those who were sent to help you, even though you may not even have realized that you need help, drop what you are doing and come. If you want to meet the ones who will help you turn on one more light in your own internal home, or sweep away the cobwebs from one more dark place in your heart, don't miss the opportunity. And just like I knew I was supposed to invite that woman to lunch, you will also know when you are called to go and when you aren't. Rumi, who wrote the words to the hymn that we sang before the sermon, also said, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there." That is the transcendence that our work offers to us. I can't wait to meet you there. Blessed be.